caring for ISIS families and working in one of the most dangerous places in the world, we'll talk to members of the Free Burma Rangers on this episode of The Hot Zone.
This is The Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hi, my name is Sahay Eubank, and I'm 18 years old, and with the Free Burma Rangers, I'm an assistant dentist and ambulance driver, and also in Burma I help lead the horse and mule teams, and here I just help distribute food, water, diapers, and whatever the IDPs need.
Tell me what it's like being in Syria with your family in a war zone.
So I definitely call it being in Syria with my family is an adventure, and it's different from being anywhere else in Thailand or America. It's good because we get to help people. You feel fulfillment for helping people, but also makes you realize a lot of different things, makes you really grateful for the things that you have back home that people here don't have, and that you actually don't have to live out here for the rest of your life, and that you can go home while these people have to suffer and live here. The hardest part for me has been talking to the wives and the mothers and daughters that used to belong to ISIS families, and how they see themselves as being not as valuable as the men, not as valuable as the sons or the fathers or brothers. And it's just that degrading of women here that we see so much during this time. They seem to be less valuable. So I would explain, danger is relative in my opinion. You could get hit walking across the street in Chicago or New York, or just being in Utah somewhere and someone robs your car and shoots you there. It's like you can't control when your last breath will be, and you can't control what's going to happen exactly or when. You can do your best to prevent all those things, but the more you prevent dangers from happening to yourself, the more you limit your life and you limit the adventures that God give you and that you could have. So I'd say coming to Syria, the chance to help other people gives you an opportunity for a better life for your soul, your spirit, yourself. And even though there is that relative danger, it's a good place to remind you who you're following and remind you of your purpose in life, so that you're not just walking around at home wondering, what am I contributing to the world and what am I doing?
My name is Ilya. I come from Burma and Kyrgyzstan. Now I come here, I'm married, so I try to take care of some patient if we see it.
Okay, what have you seen since you've been here as far as injuries and stuff?
Here is a lot of patients for trauma and wounded. And also the weather here is cold, and then many patients get air problem.
They get sick?
Yeah, they get a common cold, runny nose, some fever, and then, because of cold.
As far as a combat medic, I have experience. I grew up in Yosemite National Park, where I started working rescue there at 16 years old, and I worked rescue all the way till 25, until I joined the military. And then I went on after the military. I wasn't a combat medic in the military, but then I went on to working in Ukraine, Iraq, Afghanistan, Palau, the Philippines, and other places around the world, and now in Syria as a medic.
So you've seen a lot of mayhem. How would you classify the kind of stuff that we're seeing here?
We're seeing stuff where they need frontline help, where there's a gap in between the front line and the NGOs in the back. So they don't have that good of medical care in the front. We're seeing a lot of traumatic injuries in the front that need stuff right then and there, help.
And tell me about the gravity of the injuries you're seeing.
The gravity of the injuries, the other day we've had one person with shrapnel or a gunshot wound to the head and other parts of the body, and they end up dying on us there. And then we had another 6-year-old or 5-year-old boy who had numerous shrapnels and gunshots on him, who we transported to about an hour away to a hospital, but it wasn't a hospital. It was a small medical place with no medical supplies. And they did their best to move him on to the hospital. Other injuries are lots of shrapnel wounds all over the bodies, major injuries to all the limbs. We're seeing a lot of wounds from mortars, airstrikes, and weapons of all kinds. Yeah, there's nobody out here. It's just us. I haven't seen any other NGOs or anybody else out here near the front. We're still not near the front too close, but there's still nobody.
And so as far as medical care goes, they don't have any other option.
Yeah, there's no other options. I've seen no other medical care out here besides us.
And when somebody else is trying to tell you, like, babysit you and go, no, you it's too dangerous.
No, people need to make their own choices, and we're here to help the people, and we made our choice. We're here to help them, and hopefully we can stay and keep helping them. So the other day we were transporting a critical patient from a refugee point to a hospital, a YPG medic station, and it ended up being next to a U.S. military base. And when we got there, we realized the local units didn't have any medical gear. And it's really sad that right next door on the other side of the wall is a U.S. military compound, pretty good size, and they probably have a bunch of medical people inside, 18 Deltas, and they could be getting a bunch of experience treating these wounded coming in.
And so what motivates you to come out here and do this?
To help the people in need. Just there's so many people that need, and we can save so many people up here on the front. We can do good.
And why do you, you're talking about giving up a month's pay to come out here.
Some things are helping other people that don't have anything are worth it all, in my opinion.
Well, that's one of the hallmarks of who FBR is, really. We will go to the places that most NGOs don't go, are not equipped to go and not trained to go. And so at the crucial moments when people are fleeing, especially situations like this in conflict zones where their safety is an issue and frontline medical care is non-existent because they have to be transported all the way back to the main CCP and then have to wait maybe there and go to a hospital, we can fill that gap with our trained medics and offering help, hope, and love to these people. Even with the children who are often in trauma coming out of these situations, we do a little program for them and give them little toys and calm their hearts. I was just playing with a little kid that his eyes just lit up and he kept giving me the little lamb back and forth, and it's that kind of stuff that will help these kids in the trauma. And then the physical parts, of course, we're trying to stabilize people so that they can be transported.
What happens to them if we're not here?
Well, some of them have already frozen to death out here. Last night we spent the night out here and it was so cold. There was ice on everything in the morning. And so the last site we were just at had 5 bodies there from people who had frozen during the night. So if we're not there, there's nobody to fill the gaps, and nobody's trained to do that. It's not that they don't want to do it, but they don't have the eyes or the techniques or even the medicine to help these people to stabilize them that way.
When you hear that certain organizations are saying, you guys shouldn't be here, it's too dangerous, how do you answer that for people?
Well, I think it's hard for people to wrap their minds around what we do. Oftentimes we'll run into those other organizations who kind of go, what in the world are you? Who are you guys? But usually if we are there on site for a couple of days, they start getting it. They start figuring it out because they see how much good can be done. And so I think we're just in a category that's hard for people to know about because we've never seen it before. We're pretty unique out here.
And when people back home say, what are you, crazy? You're going to get killed out there. Talk about how, combat is a very dynamic thing, and when the battle could be right over there and right here is perfectly safe.
Yeah, that's right. And also in that we do trust the locals. So we have our own training. Most of us are ex-military, so we have our own training and have had combat experience now in especially the last 5 years in Iraq and Kurdistan. And then the SDF here have been here on the ground for a while, so we trust them. We know we know enough about who they are to kind of listen to them and trust them, and when not to do that as well. So yeah, they know where the front lines are, they know where some of the safe areas are, but we're always switched on just in case, you know.
Just describe to me what we've seen so far here in southern Syria.
Well, so far what we've seen is coalition working very tightly with the SDF to take out this last pocket of ISIS. And in that process, you have a lot of civilians that's been concentrated down from the outlying villages. So a lot of the people who could flee and blend back into the culture have already done that. So you've got a lot of foreign fighters and their wives and children that we're running into out here. So, you know, it's been thousands, and then the last few days we've seen hundreds to come out here with varying injuries and more serious injuries, actually, because they were in that tighter pocket where a lot more bombs and mortars and things are going off in that area.
So explain to me about the situation with the 3 people that we transported the other day.
So yesterday we came upon this family, a mother and a young child, young baby, 3-year-old, and then another boy that had been mortared. And so the young baby, the little tiny baby, had an intestinal wound, a stomach wound, where his intestines were actually coming out. So we were trying to, you know, take care of that, pack that back in. And actually that child seemed to be pretty stable. We were actually working a lot on another boy, smaller boy, that had taken a mortar round, had cranial injury. We could actually see his brain matter inside his head. And he had a lot of other injuries that we felt like were critical to where he was kind of drowning in his own fluids inside his lungs. So he's very beyond our capacity, honestly. But we can stabilize him, but really beyond our capacity. So we negotiated with the SDF to try to transport these 3 people out. And you know, our medics did a heroic job on the way. It was almost 2 hours to the CCP, and we were able to get that child and that mother and the other kid into another van, which was an ambulance that the SDF has, and they were going to spend another couple hours just getting to a hospital. So we did the best we could with that, but then the next morning we found out that the little baby with the stomach wound had passed away on the way on transport. So, you know, it begs the question. You know, if we were here sooner, if we were here on site, if we can motivate these transports a little bit quicker, somebody's there to assess, has authority, they can put these critical injuries especially, and get them to a hospital as soon as possible. We literally save lives.
What's it been like treating people that you know are ISIS fighters or former ISIS or even still sympathizers?
Yeah, that's always an interesting one.
Put that in a sentence for me.
Yeah. For me, I see the humanity first, and I have compassion. It took me a while, actually, to get to that place, because lots of my friends have been hurt by ISIS, including our Humvee driver here, shot 6 times in Mosul. And then I watch him give love to these people. I mean, these are the ones that shot him, tried to kill him. I mean, he was seriously wounded. They didn't think he was going to live, kind of stuff. And I watch this guy, and I go, man, if he can love them, I mean, I certainly can love them. And it moves me to compassion. And I see the little kids, especially, they have no clue. They had no choice to grow up into this stuff. And those are a lot easier to love, obviously. But I'm sad. I think it's evil. And I think it has blinded the eyes of the adults. And I'm just praying that their eyes will they'll see a new way and see the truth.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.